rescission of the Lincoln East specific plan.
All right, so back at it here. I know it's late in the evening. And I have a somewhat of a lengthy presentation because it is a pretty big item in front of you, but I'm going to try to power through it. But absolutely, hit me up with the questions or what if I didn't go into detail enough. So what you have before you is discussion regarding rescinding the Lincoln East specific plan. The Lincoln East specific plan is the southwest corner of the sphere of influence, just adjacent to the southwest boundary of the city. It's bounded by Franklin Road on the north, South George Washington on the west, and then you have Bogue Road on the south, and then generally bounded by Sanborn Road on the east. It's there in the shaded area back over here. So a quick little timeline. 2004, we adopted our general plan. The city was growing like crazy. 2005, we did the growth policies to put a stop measure, a check on growth to make sure that growth was adhering to that new general plan requirements and implementing impact fees. And then with that time, the city entered into a contract with RRM Design Group for the preparation of the Lincoln East specific plan. So this was private development driven to, as part of our 12 growth policies, new development had to have a specific plan. And then, and so the private development entered into this agreement to start the process to do that. The Great Recession happened, and in 2008, RRM Design pulled out due to the impacts of that recession. And so with that left the city with the decision in 2008 as to proceed forward with this half-done plan or to stop. And so the thought at that time, for a person that wasn't right in the middle of the mix, was that, hey, let's be ready for growth when it comes back. There's growth pressure in this area. And so when we get through the recession, we'd be up and ready. And so the city spent $1 million+ finalizing that and then ultimately adopting the Lincoln East specific plan in 2010. So fast forward, May 21, we're looking at the 12 growth policies. All of a sudden, a decade's gone past, 15+ years, and we've found that this stuff's out of date and we're slow on growth. And then you specifically look at the Lincoln East specific plan. Now we've had a plan that's in place for 11 going on 12 years, and we've not had one development occur in that. And so when we look into this and we try to process developments, it's really, it's become a hindrance, and it was developed in a vacuum. It was developed with a different time. And so it's really some of those mitigation measures and some of those assumptions that were made at that time just don't relate to where it is now. And so, and that's why staff feels that there really hasn't seen this shovel-ready plan to have growth happen hasn't happened. So on the left, you'll see the general plan. That was what was adopted in 2005. After they got into the weeds and the layout and how to move things around with the roads and how to fit all of the, the land use types that were desired at that time, here's what's ultimately adopted through the Lincoln East specific plan and the pre-annexation zoning. So this is the zoning and the general plan use. So I should say this is the general plan use that is in place right now. So as we talked, it was 1,160 acres. It provides specific design guidelines, including roads, utilities, infrastructure, and there was a complete EIR that was done and a finance plan with the project. So since adoptions, no land has been developed. Challenging implementation provisions, development agreements, finance plans, outdated mitigation measures, infrastructure planning, they've all come together that makes it really difficult. These are the specific changes. Just when people ask, what happens when this goes away? When we rescind it, the key thing that I want to call out is the land use. This is in the sphere of influence, and we've adopted that through our general plan and the zoning through our ordinances. So that remains. What's going away is the document, and the traffic studies still remain. The proposed road sections, they're called out in the plan, and we've used that information when we've developed Bogue Stewart master plan and some of the North Harder stuff. Now we don't have to necessarily hold it to that 2010 standard. We could tweak it a little bit more to our current standard if the bike paths are a little wider, et cetera. And so these are the specific bullet points: no DA requirement, the biological and ag mitigations change, reduce affordable housing requirements, matching citywide requirements. It eliminates utility conflicts with our new master plans. There's no complicated development phasing conflicts, no financing plan requirements. It just comes back to like a city project that if somebody came forward with land in the city limits and it's zoned and general planned use, we would consider it and bring it through the zoning process based on the project instead of having a specific plan that treats it separately. The proposed rescission will facilitate planned development within the sphere of influence. It allows for individual annexation, which you see a lot with the small parcels in Yuba City, without difficult restraints. Pre-annexation, zoning, and other items considered stay. And here's some of the items that stay the same: the land use, the zoning, city standards. Again, I don't want to harp on that, but the roads, parks, general plan requirements, those still stay in place. Environmental, this is one of the big items. And I'm going to say this, that with the EIR, with rescission of the plan, when a new development comes through, so when a new subdivision proposes, now they will have to do they can't piggyback off the EIR and be done with their environmental. One of the negatives with this is that instead of adhering to a 2009 environmental impact analysis that was already done, each project will have to come through and be analyzed most likely under a mitigated neg deck CEQA review. But that information is still there in the background, the studies, the biological assessments, the traffic studies, that information remains, and it helps staff when they do the review for the current CEQA review when those projects come through. So with that, so the Planning Commission considered this at their last meeting, and there was a consensus 7-0 to rescind the plan. And so with that, staff recommends to conduct a public hearing and introduce an ordinance rescinding Ordinance 0610, rescinding the Lincoln East Specific Plan.
Any questions of Mr. Moody before I open up the public hearing? Okay. Public hearing regarding the rescission of the Lincoln East Specific Plan is now open. If there are any members of the public who would like to address the council on this issue, please provide your statement via public comment and state your name and address for the record. And I do have a speaker card from Heather Esmond.
And then there was one, right? So, whoops. Good evening. It's been a long evening. I'll try not to make this too long. So, I have 3 points. One, I attended the planning conference, planning commission meeting, and it was discussed, and I wanted to make sure that I emphasize that in this meeting as well, that this plan promises the community, and I'm basically right just, I guess, east of on Lincoln Road, in the middle there. So this impacts me greatly. It promises 82 acres of green spaces, parks, and recreation. So if you decide to rescind that today, please remember that was the promise. Don't forget it. See if you can't make sure that that somehow gets implemented. Because if you remember, or if I don't know if where you all live, but on the west side of 99 between Regency Park and Happy Park, there's one park. That is Holly Tree. That's it. That's all you gave us. So this would have given us an opportunity to have more parks in the area as well. We'll see what happens, whether or not that's implemented. But while I was researching this, as well as potential grants for the community because of my hopefully new position next week, we'll see. I did see something that needs to be addressed by the city. Evidently, per the California, I guess it's Land Protected Area Database, and I believe it's also a federal database that they utilize. It shows that there's actually a park where the school is supposed to be, AK School, the one on Walton. There's a corner there that's listed as a park. Now, if I wanted to get grant monies in order to try to put in a mini, one of those little mini parks with playgrounds and things like that, or anything that might help in this area, they're going to look at that and say, oh, well, that's a park, because it says it's a park in the database. So one of the things that would make you qualify for one of the grants that's running out on the 8th, and I don't know if we have anybody in the community that's going to try for this grant, but anyways, if I had put that right on that spot and it shows that there's a park there, then you may not qualify. And so that needs to be addressed, and I'll leave this with the city so that you can look to see, because that's either, it was a park. I do know that because I talked to somebody who lived in that area, and then they built the school and sort of took over the park, right? So, but it's still marked in here as a park and not as a school. And one more thing, during the Planning Commission meeting, Mr. Moody mentioned at the end of the Planning Commission meeting that there's actually some development that's being discussed on Sanborn, on the east side of Sanborn and Bogue, and it was something ranch. I can't remember the name of it. So there is some interest in that section, but it wasn't, he didn't disclose what any more particulars. Maybe they don't have more particulars, but it would have included that blue area, which I believe is supposed to be a school. So I'll leave this with Mr. Vaughn.
Thank you, Heather. Anybody in the audience wish to comment?
Rare there, and they're zoned ag. Are they grandfathered in, or do I lose my ag?
So this is a pretty common question. And so what you're seeing is a plan going away. You remain in the sphere of influence. And so the city's jurisdiction only applies to you when you're annexed into the city. And so should you be annexed at some point in this time, should you vote to come into the city, or enough residents vote that block of area to come in, you would fall under the city's jurisdiction. But many of our land use rules and our zoning codes match Sutter County. So there's no requirement so nothing before you tonight is related to annexation. And then on top of that, should annexation happen in the future, since you're already in the sphere of influence, you would fall under city standard law ordinances, and there's no requirement to build sidewalks or hook to water or sewer. That's really at your option. You would just be a property in the city limits should that happen.
But when I'm in the city limits, would I lose my ag zoning on my two lots?
It'd be what the pre-zoning is, and so we'd really have to look at that. So I'm curious if you're really ag, I guess.
Yeah,
and I'd be happy to look at it on 1 acre.
I have two very rare lots there.
Yeah, and so I'd have to check, and I'd be happy to do that with you. And it's probably already pre-annexed zoned to something, and so I could check that with you.
I appreciate that.
But again, the trigger would be when it's annexed to the city, and the attorney is great at land use.
Thank you. As a general rule, when you're annexed into the city, you are grandfathered in as long as what you were originally doing was legally put into place in the first place.
That's what I was.
So if you were illegally built in the county and you come in, you don't get a get out of jail free card. If you were legally built in the county and come in, you, as a general rule, can continue operations probably far past your lifetime. It's usually, 20, 40, 60 years or something like that. But at some point, if you want to develop the property, then the pre-zoning and the general plan and everything else, you have to do it consistent with how the land is planned. That's the general rule.
Okay.
So when development, when you want to develop it, if you stay the same, you keep farming your walnuts or whatever that crop might be. It might be cultivation here sooner or later. You never know. But in the county.
You can have animals on my acre lot, so like horses.
Yes, there's.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
My name is Rebecca Singh, and I live on Lincoln Road, 2545 Lincoln Road. And I was looking at kind of this from the specific plan from before, and then this Lincoln East, and there have been a lot of changes, a lot of traffic. It's just, I mean, I've been there, like I say, 55 years and grown up right there. But I would strongly suggest consideration when you look at, they've had different traffic studies even on Lincoln Road, and they put them past a couple houses where now right next door they have a business, and put it right next door into our homes that we've been there forever. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, you know, you have the traffic count is past that house, and everybody just comes there, goes back to Yuba City. So I would just strongly suggest that you look at every aspect and everything, because it has been a long time since a lot of these studies have been done. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience? Anybody online?
No public comment.
Okay. Hearing no further comment on the issue, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing, bring the matter back to the council. Let me just make a few comments. Working for the city back then, there was the things when this plan was being developed, and as the fire chief, I had a few things to say about it. And I would agree, things in 2008, 2007 are a lot different than they are here in 2021. While I was not any longer with the city when it was approved, I have received several comments from folks concerned about, you know, the abandonment of a promise. And I think that as this, if and when these properties begin to develop, there is a certain understanding from folks out there about a park and other things that I would hope that when those annexations or developments occur, that we pay attention to as they move through LAFCO and through other things. But I'm sensitive to that because people did locate out in that area or were part of that process as a public input and do have some expectations, as Ms. Essman mentioned as well. So, anybody else? All right, council action.
Through the mayor, I move to introduce an ordinance to rescind ordinance 006, or should that be 007, 007 joke, -10, thereby rescinding the city's Lincoln East specific plan. I can't even talk now, and waive the first reading. And in addition to your comments, yes, gentlemen, it's been a long night. In addition to your comments that you made, Mayor, I appreciate that.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Councilperson Espandola, second by Vice Mayor Shaw. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Item 17 passes unanimously. Move to item 18.